What is going on, everyone, and welcome to the live stream. So let's get people in. It is just about 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 o'clock Central, my time. So what I want to do first is I want to look at futures really quick, get a sense of how the market looks going into tomorrow. Hope everyone had a great weekend. Should be a fun week. We had a pretty stagnant week last week, so I'm expecting some type of move up or down. And if we see a move down, I mean, those would be good dips, in my opinion, to be buying. If we see a move up, we can have a nice green week across the board. We'll see. We will see. But as of right now, everything is green in terms of futures, and the VIX is red. So volatility and fear is headed downwards, as we saw last week. UVXY, VXX, a lot of those indexes, even though the market was down, they were also down. Well, it's because the market wasn't down very much. It's one of those where you kind of had, it's a good hedge, but at the same time, that hedge is only going to work out if we see some real volatility, which many times when the market comes crashing down for a day or two or whatever, right? For whatever reason. Many times, you don't have a reason. I will talk about a bunch of stocks. ZOM is another one we'll definitely talk about. My thoughts on that one as well. So really quick, right? Let's take a look at the overall market. Let's look at SPY really quick, because SPY is going to be, here's why I was saying pretty stagnant the past couple weeks. I mean, look at this range. We've been in this range from like the upper 380s to the low, 390s, and then that's it. That's all we've been doing. So, we haven't had any kind of drastic moves up or down. And I think that a lot of people are kind of in the, I think at least my thought process was after the election, once things kind of settle down, maybe more so after the inauguration, once things kind of settle down, I guess news-wise, politics-wise, I would think, or I anticipated kind of more kind of sideways action or less kind of volatility, and then maybe just more of a steady grind up over time. But we've been kind of seeing, we saw some volatility, early in the beginning or the end of January, early February, and then kind of a push back up, recovered, hit all-time highs. So we'll see. All-time highs are very, very close. So it really doesn't take a big green day. It takes two green days in a row, two solid green days in a row for the overall market. All-time highs are hit. So we're really within range pretty well. So, with that said, we'll see how that market fares. I mean, coming back up to this top line resistance this week would put us in that 395 towards 397, 398 range. If we can go and hit 400, that would be a break to the upside of this trend line that we've been seeing here on SPY, on the S&P. So we'll see if that happens. CCIV is going to be nuts. Yeah, that's going to be crazy. I mean, do I regret not grabbing some as a speculative play, weeks ago? Probably, but, there's always something else. So let's see. We'll definitely talk about Bitcoin. Bitcoin has been kind of pulling back, at least lately, right? Yeah, it is. So it hit up over 58,000, and then it's been pulling back down to low 56. It's kind of weird how, at least I've been noticing, what you kind of get is a push up Friday into Saturday on the weekends, a pullback Saturday afternoon, Saturday night, and then a grind back up Sunday morning, and then a sell off into the night hour Sunday. And then lately we've kind of been seeing a recovery into Monday. So we'll see if Bitcoin can push back up and hit all-time highs again into tomorrow morning. That'll kind of, continue that trend, at least I've been noticing as of late on Bitcoin. So a lot of those Bitcoin stocks will be moving for sure. We'll talk about ZOM. We'll talk about SNDL, SGOC on the topic of Bitcoin. Take a peek at that. Because we are on that topic. So SGOC, yeah, this thing I like this chart setup. And there's a lot of charts that look similar to this. We'll talk about some of them. ATIF, HUSA had this kind of, they kind of have that parabolic kind of look to them, where, you kind of have higher lows being put in and then, eventually move up. Oil, I think oil is going to be just fine for oil plays. I think I'm just going to be kind of loading the boat on those if we see some further dips. I do like oil plays, especially USEG after their offering and pullback. And then HUSA pulled back pretty nicely at the end of last week. So I think that's a good reload zone, in my opinion, for a further move up. So we'll talk about some of those as well. Let's see. Let's dive into ZOM, and then we'll dive into some of the. ZOM is not a stock I like, really, to be honest. If it can't hold $2, then that's not really. That ideally it's got to hold $2 for me. Under there, then there's a lot of downside. I don't want to mess with it, to be honest. Up this much. There's just so many other plays, I think. Although, if you are looking for a trade idea, a $2 support, buying it down towards $2, looking for targets up towards $2.75 to $3, that would be a decent idea. With a breakout over $3, being your breakout to all-time highs and potentially a much bigger move up. Yeah, the product launch is on the 30th of March, so they're still over a month out until their launch, so we'll have to see how that goes. SNDL is another one that everyone's going to be talking about. Finished decently. They have a $1 billion shelf offering on the table now, though, and so I would anticipate they use that. Just my anticipation. When they filed their last shelf, they used it. There was kind of that controversy as to like what it actually meant. They retracted it, and they didn't actually retract it. They just kind of amended, or they changed the wording, or they changed whatever the terms, and now they used that up. So I would be very, very surprised if in the next month SNDL doesn't kind of tap into that new shelf offering. I think that they're going to do so. Whether that's for for building cash, stacking some cash for some potential acquisitions, whatever they want to do, sure, that's fine. That could be a longer term growth idea, but I think that short term you're going to have some more volatility there. So dip buys on offerings could be a decent idea, and it's been working out pretty well over the past couple of weeks, right? So we will see. Okay, let me see if I can catch up really quick. CIDM earnings after close tomorrow. Let's pull this bad boy up. How does CIDM look? Yeah, this is a decent setup. Take a look at this. We have a higher lows right there, and then we have lower highs. So we kind of have this pennant shaped look. We got to get a move in one direction, the other here, and I can see this potentially with the earnings coming up. We may be getting a move over, to the top, over this top line resistance, breaking out. But then, of course, the ultimate move will be the earnings, right? What happens at earnings? If we don't get anything good, or if they're, subpar or whatever, and we don't get as much as maybe people are expecting, then yeah, this is probably going to come crashing down. Maybe not crash now, but it may come down towards this lower trend line, which would put us down towards like 180-ish, 185. And then if that breaks down towards 175, 170 would be the areas I'd be watching as support to the downside. So CIDM, I want to see 170 hold, because roughly prior high up in here, and then you see also a prior low right here support. So 165 is probably my lowest I would go on that one, before I would say, let's just reassess, give it some time to settle out before another entry, unless you like it long term, and that's a whole other story. VXRT, a lot of people like VXRT. I've been getting a lot of people who have been asking about it. This is getting to that point, though, right? VXRT is getting to that point where, okay, you have this area right here of consolidation before it made this big spike. We're in that kind of range, right? So we're back into this range. Yeah, you have to be ready for a potential, further drop to the downside. Could I see this thing coming down a couple of dollars? Yeah, it could. But also you have that type of range to the upside. So it doesn't look like a terrible idea. It's trying to hold some support. It looks like around $7, the low sevens, seems to be support for right now. So could be a decent speculative entry. It had a decent, kind of doji kind of looking candle on a Friday. So we'll see if we get a move to the upside into this week. It looks like it's trying to bottom out for right now. So that's not a terrible point for an entry, I would say. I already have level 2 videos explaining how to use that in Webull. If you go on my channel page, you can just type in level 2, and there should be at least 1 or 2 videos that pop up over that. CTRM, let's see. We can take a peek at that guy. Let's pull this bad boy up. A lot of these stocks are kind of funny because, ZOM, SNDL, CTRM. Now, just going to give you guys my honest take on these. These are probably stocks that maybe I'll play for a bounce, but there's almost no chance in heck that I'm probably going to play any of these personally. They just they've run up so much over the past couple, 2 months, right? I just see, the risk reward is completely, skewed in my opinion here chart wise. And so there's so many other opportunities, I think, right now with better chart setups than some of these. However, it doesn't mean that they can't keep running. So they're just not something that I'm interested in, although CTRM holding support here on 110. So we had a pop, we had news, and then we're going to see if we can hold that support. So it's kind of testing this downtrend break. If it can break back to the upside, the chart setup is there. It doesn't look that bad. Same thing, SNDL, CTRM, ZOM. The chart setups are not terrible for a bounce, although, right, the balance point that they're bouncing from right now is still up quite a bit from where they were 2 months ago. So that's why I'm just not a huge fan of those. But that's just me. Let's see. I'm sorry, I'm catching back up on some of these. Biggest SPAC position now, probably Clove, I think, in the long term. Clove is probably if not the biggest. It's my larger positions are still probably in the long term FSR and NEO is still one of the larger ones. I had a lot of SPCE, but that's been up a lot, so I trimmed that quite a bit. So I took about half, if not a little bit more than half off of that, because I was up over 100%. So those are some of my, those were some of my, that was like my biggest position because it had run up so much, but I trimmed that down. So we'll see if we want to be adding into some other ones. I like FRX though. People are mentioning that one too. I like FRX quite a bit. So we'll see if I can get this thing under 15 bucks. I think it's not a terrible spot for a long-term stash away. I'm still waiting on my IRA transfer because I created an IRA with Webull, so I'm still waiting for that transfer to go through. Once that happens, I'm probably going to grab a good chunk of FRX in there, as long as it's probably not, up over 20 bucks. I'm not going to touch it over there, at least for right now. I'll probably buy some NEO in there for sure. NEO is actually in an interesting spot now that I mention it, because NEO is, if we take a peek at how NEO has been doing, it's at that 50 SMA. So we'll see if we get a bounce from the low 50s right here. I would think so. I personally think we get a bounce from this level. If not, it would be kind of interesting to see if NEO kind of cracks that 50 SMA support, which it showed support a couple weeks back, actually a couple months back, 2 months back, and we'll see if we can hold up. If we can't, then, we'll have to obviously look for a new support. But I think with NEO, it's one of those stocks that if it's red, I'm going to buy it. If I have cash available and I'm looking for a new entry, if it's red, I'm going to buy it. Like, that's just kind of the name of the game. Yeah, FRX is going to be interesting come Monday. We'll see. Let's see. AFI pulling back earnings after earnings. AFI. Yeah, look at that. It's a similar kind of look to the chart we had on HEPA, HEPA. So this actually doesn't look too bad. We'll see if we can potentially hold support here around this 375, because there was a prior low right here, 375-ish, about a month ago. And that was a prior high up in here as well. So this looks like a pretty decent entry spot, I would say. Around this 375, under 4, probably looks pretty good, with a gap up towards, closer to 470, 475. So you got about $1, I would say, dollar range to the upside here. This could be a decent swing. And if we zoom things out, just get a sense looking to the left of how this guy looks. Yeah, you're at a relative low. I mean, ultimately, like longer term, right? We have this uptrend kind of forming here. There's kind of a couple points we can hit. It's not too bad. We got a couple candles, 1, 2, 3. Kind of came close to that line here, and then now we're holding up around that 375. So I do kind of like that. That doesn't seem like a terrible swing idea. Oh yeah, PLTR is another one that I'm in. I just bought some this past week in the long-term portfolio. Probably want to buy some of that in the IRA as well. Let's see. Middo. Middo is one that I traded a while ago. I don't believe I like it here though. Let me just see. Because, let's see. Well, okay, no, actually not a terrible idea. I liked it back in here. I think I traded up into this push up towards nearly 2, and I sold. Would have been a good, I just wasn't paying attention. It would have been a good re-add down here, down towards 150. Would have been really good rebuy. Push, I believe it had news, if I'm not mistaken, or something that pushed it up here to 250. So that was a really good $1 move from 150 to 250 in about 2-3 weeks, not 2 weeks, not even 3. Now it's come back down and held up $2. So that's a good look here. So when you have these spikes, these are good types of looks for the next leg of the trade. Now, many times the second leg of the trade isn't as strong as that first leg. So I like to try to catch this first leg if I can. But the second leg of the trade looks pretty solid, where you have the push up, a pullback, have now developed support at $2. Right, we literally came down to $2 and could not drop below $2. And now we have a lot of kind of doji candles. When you kind of have this. We don't have a consistent trend or a consistent move up. So we have these 2 green candles the past 2 days. Although look at the types of range. We have a range down to 203 up towards 218, but the candle actually opened and closed right in the middle of that both days. That's what those dojis kind of mean when you don't have really a much of a body to them. So that's going to be interesting. We'll have to see how that plays out. But this looks like it may be looking to set up for a reversal pattern back up and the U-shaped recovery, right, where you kind of have a pop, pull back, develop support, higher low, and then push back on up to the upside. And then the key is that 258. If it can break back over that prior high, thing usually shoots up to the upside. Appreciate it, William. Thanks a lot. I'm going to be doing more videos, more kind of tutorial style and stuff, building out some more playlists. the next couple of weeks, so stay tuned for that. The playlist section should be kind of, I have some broad playlists with a ton of videos, but I want to kind of separate a couple into some smaller playlists that are like more kind of specific into certain questions that I get a lot of. So building that out the next couple of weeks for sure. So that's going to be fun. Let's see. As much as everybody likes the top stock stuff, that's what gets the views. I'm going to try to make sure I have a lot of educational stuff as well. Entry for AIKI. Let's see. What do I have on AIKI? I have an entry right around here. So I have an entry right around this 160-ish, I think. Actually, no. I think I have an average under 170, just under 170. I think I bought my first bid at 170, and then I rebought on a dip. So I'm up in here. 150, I would like to see that hold up if it can. And I want to see AIKI make a move back up towards $2. $2 would be my first target, just because it's a kind of a whole solid number. And that's a solid, from where it's at, 35 cents. That's a solid trade. On a stock under $2, you get 35 cents. That's a solid trade. So that's what I'm looking for on AIKI. The longer it sits down here at 150 or around 150 is the heavier I'm going to get. So as it sits here, if it drops down under 160, that's where I'll take, like I was talking about in today's video, that's where I'll take another 1/4 of my account, or of my, not my account, of my max position size, which is 10% of my account. So I'll take another 1/4 and I'll throw that at AIKI down here. Getting pretty solid in terms of, fairly easily identifying a trade here, because to me, right, what I can see is that, okay, this thing drops below 150, 145, maybe I'll give it a couple cents, below that. I'm risking to myself here a couple cents to the downside, but I'm ideally looking for a stock that's in a solid uptrend. Recently had an offering, pulled back, had that momentum, and it will probably resume to the upside. That's what I'm expecting. Obviously, if the market stays fairly hot, if we don't see a crash, we'll see, which I don't expect a crash. Appreciate the donation. Can you review DNN, give your thoughts? Enter at 141. Let's take a look. DNN. Okay, so we have this guy, which is coming back down. Enter at, then it dropped, believe, still. Okay. So the stop loss thing is, I always recommend having some sort of mental stop loss where it's like, okay, you know what, mentally here, I'm looking for a target of this much, and I'm going to have a stop loss in my head where I don't want it to drop this much because I'm looking for, double the reward than the risk. So for example, in this situation, I personally don't like this chart setup because what's happening here is that we don't know we really don't have much history in terms of finding support for a bounce. The thing pops up to 180 and then it's pulling back. Now, okay, it's come down to 115, closing at 120 on Friday. So we'll see what happens. I would think $1 is probably going to be the area to hold up, worst case scenario. So you still probably have about 20 cents to the downside, worst case scenario. Usually $1 is a strong area of resistance when pushing through, and then support coming back down. So $1 is the area that I'd be watching. But when it comes to this guy, I would be probably, if you can, looking to add at $1. And then if it cracks below 1, for me, that's probably the area that I'm looking to get out. So if I mean, who knows the situation exactly behind, but if you had some extra cash, you can enter at 1 or double your position, for example, at $1. If your average is at 141, now your average is at 120, and we get a bounce from 1 and then pushes back up. Now, I don't know enough about this company, to be honest here. We have, looks like a mining company. Let's pull it up quick to see what we got going on. Okay, so uranium development exploration. Okay, this a lot of mining related companies have been fairly hot, so I do not doubt this play. This seems like it could be a decent play for sure. I just haven't looked enough personally into this one. So I would think $1 worst case going to hold. If you can add down into the low ones, that's probably a decent idea. If it does drop below 1, not a terrible idea to just keep it on the radar, but here's where I would say is your support underneath 1, down towards 83. Why? Is because we have a double top here, because this was a double top, so that was the prior area of resistance. Now it's going to be support to the downside. Also, 50 SMA coming back up. That's going to continue to push up as long as the stock stays above this point, right? The higher the stock is, right, this is going to come up faster and faster. So I wouldn't be surprised if this 50 SMA kind of meets the price action around 1. So give it some time. Ideally, you may have an average that's a little bit high from at least for me. But that said, it's not the end of the world. If you believe in the play still, there are still opportunities to be buying. I would say $1 if it does drop below 1, but you have conviction behind the play and you've done your due diligence and you really trust and believe in it. Well, then another spot to add potentially will be at the 50 SMA when that touch happens, if it comes up in here or down towards 83. I know it's a long way down, but that's kind of my take. And I think we may be looking at a stock that potentially puts in support and maybe recovers back on up and takes a shot, makes a U-shaped recovery at some point. We just haven't seen that bottom kind of forming yet. We're still on the down. We're still on the down, catching a falling knife, as they say. So a lot of people don't like catching the falling knife. I personally don't. I'll let them kind of come down and develop some support, hold up at a certain point before I enter them. So that's just at least my take. Options. I have a bunch of options videos. Personally, not some. I used to do a lot of options, or at least I used to mess around with a lot of options. Now I pretty much, I'll trade options here and there on certain things like VXX calls or whatever. I'll mostly sell covered calls, so I'm not going to be like I'm not huge into buying calls, buying puts for my plays. And people ask me questions, okay, like if you like, a stock, for example, if you like a penny stock, let's pull up like, for example, I don't know, ASMB or something like that. I don't even know if they have options. They have options? They probably do. Like, for example, ASMB is a swing trade that I'm in. If I like this stock, right, why wouldn't you just buy options? My only issue with options on this thing is that I don't want to have to deal with or mess with time. So my strategy is share-based, and if I'm playing stocks that have that 25 to 35, potentially 50 to 100% potential kind of upside, there's no need for me to trade options on that because there's already enough volatility. There's already enough potential upside there that I'm willing to be, willing to take, right? Without having to trade an option on that. That's just kind of my take on that. Naked's a Bitcoin play. Yeah, it's a funny one. I think it could certainly go, and we'll see. This actually isn't setting up terribly because it's coming back to this area. This 115, the low ones is holding up fairly decent. Actually, as support, it could get a pop. I certainly think it could get a pop if Bitcoin pushes up, hits those new highs again. AKBA, this is one that I think I played a while. What do we got? I played this one. What did I do? I played this one a while back. Back in here, up towards like $5 was my target. Right, took most of my shares off there because I was in from like under 3. So, again, this thing has more room, and this is an example of a stock that, if I wanted to hold, 100 shares or hold a small piece of my position if I wanted to, this wouldn't be a terrible idea to hold some for an extra couple dollar move if we get that gap fill eventually. I think it's from what I've looked into, I think it's got potential, but once it hit $5, it made me, 100% or whatever it was on my position. So I took my profits and I moved on to something else that I felt more confident in, that I liked the chart set up better at that point. Staff, let's take a peek at Staff. How is this guy looking? Sitting at 116. Okay, dip down here to 93.50 SMA, sitting around 95 cents. Holding up around 110 or so for right now. So Staff's funny. I played it back in here in like the 70-ish to like 80, 95-ish, 93-ish. And then it bounced, it came back down, held up in the low 80s, and then pushed up to 140s. I think it has that type of potential. Look at the range it has in this chart. I like this. This is not a terrible play. Dips from here I think are pretty solid, in my opinion. I wouldn't want to see it dropping below this orange line, which is where it's holding up the pass, which is right around 87 cents right now. So yeah, you have some decent downside, but I would say accumulation zone could be from here down. Now, also, one thing to note too is we have what could be potential downtrend breaking, or potentially ready to break. So we'll have to watch that. If this downtrend, let's look at the 4-hour chart to see if this is accurate. Yeah, so we want to watch this downtrend roughly, see if this downtrend holds up or breaks out. And if it does, then this could be a nice reversal. It's got some support. It's bottomed out here around this 110-ish area. It's pretty decent bottomed out area. So I do kind of like where it's sitting. Let's see. SENS. I can pull it up really quick. And I'll give you at least my take on it. Chart-wise, I made a video on the second channel today, which should be linked below in the description box. So that's where I dive in on like one stock per day, and I just do a stock I got a lot of questions on. I'll just do more of a technical analysis. What's the news? What's been going on? And so it's got these kind of pushes up consolidations. It's done it 4 times now, or And so now we're at the beginning stages of what looks to be a potential, consolidation before another move up until the trend breaks. So if it can't hold 425-ish, then I can see this thing coming down to, $4 or so into this consolidation area. So that's what I want to see hold up for at least for right now. We will see. So yeah, what else did I want to talk about? So I mentioned really quick, I want to talk about this really quick because I mentioned in today's video HEPA, how I'm going to trade HEPA, how I essentially the same idea from this is that this has been kind of recurring. This pattern that I use, not this pattern, but this strategy, this strategy that I use for this trade. So I'm buying some here where it was. Comes down towards 220, I'll buy some more. Comes down towards $2, I'll buy more, and then I'm holding a little bit. I'll hold some more cash available just in case. Worst case scenario, there's some bad news overnight offering. Who knows? I can always average down if I need to. But my first target's here. So what am I going to do in terms of taking price targets? So what I do is when I enter a trade immediately, right? So if I enter into HEPA, I will take immediately about whatever I enter, so about 90% of the shares that I entered in, and I'll set an immediate sell here at my target. So I'm setting sells up towards this 275 at my first target. That's where I'm setting sells immediately, because this way, if something happens in the after hours, something happens in the pre-market and I'm not paying attention, I have good till canceled extended hour sell orders ready to go to capitalize on gains. And if I'm not paying attention, it happens fast, quicker than I want or whatever, then yeah, it takes my shares out, I lock in gains, and of course, I have a little bit on the table to ride. Now, ideally, what I would like to do is build this position out a little bit more. So instead of just having 1/4 in it, having, half to maybe 3/4 of a full position size into this guy. And then that's where I'll say, okay, the first 1/4 is going to be coming off around my first target, and then we'll see. Sometimes I'll sell from there. What I usually do is sell half at a time. So everyone can do this differently. If you have multiple targets, like my first target maybe is like 275, second target's $3. I can sell 1/4 at 275. I can sell 1/4 at $3. Okay, cool. But then, I'm kind of, then I have 1/4 left. What do I do at that? Maybe at that point, I'm going to take, okay, maybe let's say I have 200 shares left, for example. What I'll do is I'll just sell half at a time. So, okay, now the thing is over $3. Where's my next target? Okay, 315. I'm going to sell half my shares remaining at 315. Okay, it's still running up. The momentum's still there. It keeps pushing up. Where's the next level? Maybe the next level for me is like 350. I'm going to sell half what I have up at 350. And at some point, either I'm going to get to the point of okay, I'm good here. I'm going to take my profits and move on. Either there was a news spike, and then if you get a stock that spikes 100%, 200% off of news, many times that spike, that stock, the next couple of days will come back down. So I want to take my money and move on. So I'll do that. If it's just a pure momentum play where the stock has no news driving the stock, but it's kind of grinding its way back on up, that's where many times you'll see the stock kind of holding up, and I can be a little more comfortable scaling out a little bit slower. So it really comes up to you, but at least at a minimum, I'm locking in gains here. And then if the stock comes back down to my average or comes back down to support, either I'll rebuy or I will then cut the stock off for, I'll cut that trade if it does drop below my average or it comes back down below $2. I'll cut it there knowing well that, hey, I already locked in some gains here, so the trade's not going to go red on me. That's one of the biggest things, is I always make sure I lock in enough gains that this trade will not go red on me no matter what happens after I lock in some gains. I think setting the sells is key, and that's one of those things too. So if you are someone who is on a margin account, I really would recommend a cash account and still swing trade. So I know you have to deal with having cash settle, which is kind of a pain. But if you kind of manage your capital, fairly at least, and you're not going in massive, too big on one trade, right? And your risk management is at least somewhat fair. It shouldn't be a big deal. And I think what's bigger is that you don't have to worry about day trades. The last thing that I want to worry about is day trades. So I want to be able to enter a position, right, and not have to worry. If it does drop below my mental stop and it no longer looks good by the end of the day, I want to be able to cut it. If there's bad news that day, if they drop an offering in the after hours, I want to be able to cut it for a loss if I have to, right? Or if the stock runs up that same day, for whatever reason, the after hours they have news, or the stock, I buy it and I get lucky and all of a sudden it starts running on up, I want to take profits. I don't want to have that restriction, right? Especially for those under PDT. You don't want to have that restriction of having to worry about, if I can't take a day trade, so I'll wait till tomorrow. And the next thing you know, tomorrow, it's no longer, your target was hit today, but tomorrow the stock's pulling back off and, you're throwing yourself off. So that's why I recommend a cash account. to those who can afford to do that. I mean, anyone can. I would recommend that if you're under the PDT rule, so under $25,000 in a margin account. I would personally recommend a cash account. I think that's just helpful for me. LGHL live streams earlier. I possibly can. I can put out a new poll. I put out a poll a couple weeks back or a couple months back asking for what time is best for people, and this is the best time in terms of what people wanted. So I hear you though. LGHL, I do like that one as a Bitcoin play. Let's see. I played it. The funny thing for me is that I think I had an average somewhere in like the low threes or something like that. And then it pushed up over 5 and I took my profits there. Ideally, yeah, could I have kept some? Yeah, but it's one of those that I don't need to worry. I mean, maybe it goes to $10. Who knows, at this point. I just want to take my gains. I was like 50+% on the trade. I wanted to take my gains and I had other plays that I wanted to get into. So I wanted to kind of free up some mental space because I was in too many trades to begin with. So a stock that's up this much for my style, I take my gains and I move on to the next one. I'm more of like, I'm not the home run kind of guy. I'm not going to hold a stock for however long, and hope and pray. I'm more of the, okay, like I'm going to use my strategy. If I make my 30 to 50%, whatever it is in this period of time, I know I can go find something else. So let's do that. And let's take my money out of this play that even though there may sometimes, if I have more conviction behind a play, I've done my due diligence and I feel very strongly, then yes. And I know people who feel that about LGHL. I have seen, quite a bit of good things. And they're one PR away from this thing, hitting $10. I mean, any stock can come out this coming week with a crypto or Bitcoin related press release and the stock's going to fly. So, I hear you. I like it though. Let's see. Let's go scrolling back through. NVIV, although 5 p.m. Eastern. Yeah, I can do another poll. I can do that. I can put out another poll tomorrow or whatnot, or this week, and just to see what time is best. I'll put a couple more options and see what people like. Just because I think it's been a couple months, so we might as well reassess. I think the other thing too is that with football and stuff in the U.S., people were kind of like months ago like, hey, the best time is I guess towards the end of the night. Maybe, I don't know if that had an effect. Either way, like no matter what, we were still kind of going live during the Sunday night games anyway. So whatever. NVIV is one that I played quite a bit. I do like it, but it is kind of in this point right now where we kind of have a little bit of a dilemma here, where it's like, okay, make a decision. It's got support down around 150 and it's got resistance up around 2. So it's going to be interesting. If it comes back down under 150 or so, it may kind of have some more weakness down to like 125-ish. $1 it could be a potential area. If we take a look at this trend, if we can draw some sort of trend line here, let's see if we can. Yeah, so the trend line has support down towards like 135, maybe up towards 140-ish if it takes a couple days. So there's some solid support under 150. So I don't think 150 is that line in the sand of yeah. But we're at a point right now where it's got to push back over $2 is the key for NVIV. That's the resistance that it's got to break above. It was a solid resistance in the past. Yeah, that's definitely key. Back here in July, it hit $2 a couple times, could not break above. Over 2 gets 250. So that's what I'd be watching on this guy. So it's got some range. I like the play, but again, it was one of those where I was buying it down in here. I made my, whatever it was, solid percentage gains, and it kind of got to this point up in here. I think I was selling low in the low ones. So I took my profits here. It popped to nearly 2. And at that point, the chart setup is no longer in my favor. Yeah, does it have some range? Yes. If I had, if I wanted to kind of keep some shares on, could I have? Yes. But I kind of moved on. So I like to get in as low as I possibly can. That's just me though. SOS. Yeah, so SOS is going to be a solid Bitcoin play, and Bitcoin, as long as it holds up here, I think it's good. $10 support for right now. I don't think it's going to come down to 10, to be honest, because we're going to get I think we're going to see a lot of gap ups on a lot of plays. So we'll see. We're probably going to get a lot of gap ups on quite a few. So we'll see. Exactly. Football's over. Yeah. I mean, I'm fine with that too. I'm down to do an earlier stream on Sundays as well. So, we'll see. I'll send out a poll this week. Let's see. Thoughts on F. For SNDL, we did, if you want to go back to the beginning of the stream, we talked about SNDL. I'm not a huge fan because there's the offering looming, and I think they're going to drop that. But if they do an offering, that'll probably be a decent dip buy, I think, for SNDL. Ford has been grinding up, right? So look at Ford the past couple of weeks, past couple of months. Beautiful push. Let's see. Wow, this thing looks, a lot better than it did last time I saw it. Okay, well, I mean, so it's certainly getting up there, right, as of late. But what we have right now is let's put in some lines. We got some support right here at this about 11.30 or so is support right now. So $11.30. I want to see that hold. It's going to be a slower mover. It's not going to be your 25% in a day type of stock, right? But that said, this thing is going to have to come back up over 12. Over 12.15 is key. So it looks like we had a little bounce. And the market, let's take a look at the market right now. Market futures are green. So this week, if this week ends or it goes green and we hit all-time highs yet again in the S&P, this is probably going to be a solid stock for the week. I would not be surprised to see Ford going back up over 12 and hitting at least new recent highs for what we've been seeing. I never go on any stocks, so if you had 1,000 or 1,000 years, here's the thing. When it comes to the strategy that I use, I'm telling you, like, it's about the habits. It's about the consistency, at least I've noticed, because I hear the thought on everyone who says, yeah, well, I only have X. I only have 200. I only have 1,000. I only have this. I have a small account. I use the same exact strategy on an account with $250. Like, from $250, I added some money. I had some profits, so I compounded the account. But the same thing when I hit 1,000, when I hit 10,000, when I hit 20, it's the same exact thing. And so that's why I recommend this, what I'm doing. So if you have, let's say $1,000 or you have $2,000 and you're playing stocks in that $1 to $2 range, 100 shares, 200 shares is still right. You have to think, I think the way I see it is percentage wise. It doesn't matter if you have $1,000, do the math on the percentage increase, right? Of if you're consistent on growing that account. And if you also on the back end, if you have income that you can add to your account in some way, shape, or form, if it's even just $5 a month for whatever, I don't care. I don't care about dollar amount. What I'm more concerned about for most people is the percentage gain and learning the skill. So that if you have the skill and you have the ability to consistently put a strategy of some kind in place that works best for you, everyone's going to be different. But if you can do something that works best for you and you can return 30, 50, 100% per year, do the math on your account. It's not going to be super small very long. And I know it's kind of the long-term game. It's a compound effect, but it doesn't take many years to go from $1,000 account to a $100,000 account on a consistent compounding. And I think as you get better, you're going to be able to compound even faster. And then you'll kind of have more of the ability to say, hey, in hot markets like the past couple of weeks or past couple of months, that's where you start to kind of go a little bit heavier, or you hold a little bit longer because you've been in the game longer. You kind of have seen the patterns over and over. So you have more, you're going to ultimately, the longer you do it, the better your success rate is going to be, because you're going to have that much more experience. So I get people are at, but I would recommend still sticking to some sort of risk management and not just going half your account on one stock or all in on here. If you're building a small account and you have experience and it's for fun, that's one thing. That's one thing that I do in my TD Ameritrade. I have a TD Ameritrade account. If I see a random OTC, and I don't know enough about the OTCs, but if I see a random OTC that I like, or if I see a stock that I like, I'll go all in on that account. It's smaller than any of my other accounts, so I'm fine if I lose it all. I'm not going to be, stressed out about it. But that's the only exception to the rule, I guess, that I have. And it's not something that I even remotely think of the same way that I think of kind of the account that we talk about here, right? The account we show every single Saturday. Let's see. SHIP, I think just did an offering, right? SHIP did not. Let's take a look at SHIP. SHIP did an offering. Yes, there's a nice little gap, and we'll see if SHIP can hold up around this 150-ish area. I would like to see it holding at roughly 150. It's got some range. I didn't realize SHIP was over $2. Damn, that's crazy. SHIP as a stock. I mean, the shippers. I don't even know what to say about some of these stocks sometimes. I mean, because I guess to a degree I'm biased, and I've got people saying, and people have been talking about. I've even seen comments and stuff, just because I see comments on videos and stuff. My own videos and whatnot. People talking about, buy these 10 stocks, they're all going to 10x by the summer, by 2021. What I will tell you is that a lot of the stocks that have been up quite a lot, now the problem I think we're going to start to see is that we're going to see a shift from anything runs, and I hope not. I would love to see everything keep going, but we're going to see a shift from anything, with legs is going to run to now solid plays, solid setups, solid, risk reward, catalysts, right, behind the swings, fundamentally undervalued plays, things like that. Those are probably going to be where the money's at in the coming months, because as we go into the spring and into the summer, it's still quite a bit away, so we got plenty of time. But as we get there, a lot of these stocks, like the ships, like the SNDLs, like the ZOMs, I'm just going to tell you from experience of last year, all of those stocks are going to come down. I hope they don't, but if it kind of the same pattern repeats, a lot of these stocks, they get run up and then they eventually come crashing down to a degree. Now, they're probably going to develop some higher lows, higher supports than where they were at. Like, I don't think SHIP's going to come back down to 40 cents in at least anytime super soon. Maybe it does in a couple, by September, but no time soon is SHIP going to come down that low. But just be careful of the backside of this, because I think a lot of that is coming for a lot of these penny stocks. There's a reason why. There's 10 stocks left under $1 or not even, this doesn't happen historically, right? And that's just potentially the times are changing. So we'll adapt and see what happens. But I would be somewhat skeptical of a lot of stocks that are up quite a bit. Just history has shown that they'll come back down, and we'll see. And so that's where I'm skeptical. I think there's a lot of good dips at the end of the summer into fall is where you get a lot of really, really solid dip buys. And if the same thing repeats into this next year, right, into 2021, going into 2022, we're going to make sure to capitalize on that massively, because if we can start capitalizing on a lot of these massively oversold plays, NAKD, take a look at some of these stocks, right? Look, I wanted to show you guys what happened with these companies this past couple of years, so you can see. Look at NAKD. If we were to zoom in on what happened to NAKD, if we go back all the way, right, to this period last year, right? Go back. NAKD was back up, downtrend. It was just downtrend central, right? But it had its spikes. It had its little runs here and there. It had its spikes here and there. But eventually, right, we got to the summer months and we got into, look at this downtrend. We got into September now, or September, 10-cent stock, a 6-cent stock. And then now it's run up. So just be skeptical of the massive run we've been seeing, because at some point, a lot of these stocks, if the company can't fundamentally prove that they're worth, right, then they're going to come crashing down. Or maybe not crashing, but they'll end up coming downtrend, and no longer will supports hold like they have been. Are we going to see these crazy spikes we have been? I hope we do, but just be somewhat cautious. Any option plays? Not personally. I'm not a huge option guy on most of the penny plays. That's something that I probably will get more into in terms of if things slow down in the penny markets. So right now they're super hot, so I have no reason to get into options as of right now. The only thing that I've been playing was I had a VXX hedge, no longer have that. I think we can probably see further highs, so we'll see. Rotation back to value, I think that's probably what we're going to see instead of just everything runs. But, I would love everything to run. It's been fun. Let's see. Oil stocks. I like oil stocks. USO, I think we're going to watch USO, watch crude oil this week. I think we're going to continue to see the uptrend continuing. If the market's green, I think oil will follow. So we'll see how USO and how crude and forward slash CL respond. So pay attention to those things. But oil stocks I like. For example, HUSA is a stock that I've been playing quite a bit, pulling back quite a bit. So I like this pullback here that we had down towards 250. I think that's a really good pullback on HUSA. USEG, another one with a recent offering at $5 or so, and then they're pulling back as well. So I believe these are going to continue to the upside. CEI just ran. Let's pull up CEI. It just ran because it had news. So it's come back. Maybe it holds up around 2. I would give it some time here. I'm in no rush. I was in this guy from the low ones or the mid ones, and I sold up around 3. So I did fine on that play. No need to get back in. But PED is the next one. I would say PED. This is a pretty solid oil play. If this one dips anymore, I will add that to my arsenal. I have HUSA and USEG personally as of right now. So those are the two that I'm running with, or I'm going to roll with for now. but I had ZEI, that spike, so I took my profits there. It comes back down, I'll rebuy. PET is one that I think could be one of those solid plays as well. So we'll see. I think we're going to see those plays go. And it's been some time since we saw like a true oil spike where we saw a lot of oil runners. And I'll tell you guys, back in the day, if we go to, I don't even know if these stocks are, you can't even find like TAT or like some of these oil stocks. It was like, I forget some of these names, but these stocks, I'll go to HUSA. Back in, where was it? It was all the way back in, I believe it was June. It was this spike right here. So HUSA went from 150 up towards like 275. That wasn't as crazy as the spike we saw back in the end of September. But a lot of stocks spiked massively. I think AXAS is one as well, Axis, and we'll see. Let's see where this one spiked in June. Yeah, it had this spike from $4 to over $9, so 100% move just like that. So we'll see. I like these oil plays. When they run, and it's fun to watch. It's fun to be in. If you're not in, it's not something you want to be chasing. I don't recommend chasing those things. UAVS, I think this is due for a bounce. UAVS is due for a bounce. It came to that 50 SMA. I think we're going to see a nice little bounce off that line. DPW, I'm in DPW, so we'll see. SNDL, I would like to see SNDL holding the low ones, although the problem with SNDL is they have $1 billion shelf offering, so that's my only kind of, my issue with SNDL. DP Dubs, I like it. I want to see DPW going back up over 8 and making a run to 10. If it goes above 8, if it breaks over 8, I think $10 is a very fair target to have. So that's what I want to see on DPW. It has EV ties, has charging ties, has Bitcoin mining ties. They got a lot of stuff going on here that any press release from them will spike the stock too. So I'll be watching for that. Solo is one as well in the EV space. For those, I mean, can we honestly agree that who likes the car? I personally can't say that I'm a huge fan of the Solo car, but here it is. So for those who don't know, they're like the ticker symbol is SOLO, but like it's literally a solo car. Like one person goes in, like that's it. I don't know the practicality of it. I don't know if it's actually going to be a longer term play, maybe. But the chart setup looked really nice. So the chart setup to me was kind of screaming 50 SMA bounce. I'm going to give it down to $7. I mean, honestly, this stock probably could come down even further. If we take a look, we can draw some higher lows. It could probably come down, like I would say, down towards like 675. So maybe I'll give it a couple extra cents down below 7. So maybe I'll be buying it down there. If it cracks below this trend line, I'll probably be out of my Solo. But KNDI, is KNDI a better looking chart? Let's take a peek at KNDI. Another Chinese EV. This has got a similar kind of, well, not a similar chart, but kind of a similar higher low uptrend. Roughly, we're getting close to that trend line. It's not a terrible idea. A lot of these EV plays are decent. On top of that, we have AYRO. Sorry, I'm not trying to go super fast, but AYRO. Here's another one of those things that I'll point out. I didn't know it at the time. I was in AYRO back in like the 6s or something like that. It spiked to over 11. I took my profits. I had my order set. But a YouTuber had mentioned it as a potential 2x from where it was with the Biden plan. And so that was something that I was, watching, back here. But it popped. And so that's kind of like your pump, right? That's kind of an example of your pump. And I have a video on the playlist on how to find stocks on the channel. So if you go to the playlist, how to find stocks to trade, the top video should be how to beat the pump. That video is a really good place to go, I think, to just kind of to understand how to do your own research. Because I mean, here's the thing: at the end of the day, I have no intention of ever building a channel to do something like that. Never. If I ever realize that I had influence like this that could spike a stock this much, I will immediately stop doing whatever I'm doing, and I will just go to live streams, and I will just go to like educational stuff. So there's no, I will not, I don't want to be involved in that stuff. And I think that's kind of, because the way that I trade, right? I trade. So if a stock spikes here, I'm not going to still hold this and say, well, no, because, in order for the SEC, because there's the whole these SEC things too, you got to be careful of, right? If you're selling into people who you're telling to buy, that's a violation, right? You can get, there's penalties for that. So for me, right, stock goes up 30%, I'm taking profits. So I can never, say like, that type of thing. But this one's coming back down. So EV play coming back down towards $8. Under 8, I think is pretty good. Under 8, I like. So we'll see. I like it. I'm out of it though for now. If it comes back down under 8, that's a solid loading zone. 50 SMA sitting at 7. So I would be buying this thing, hand over fist from $8 down to $7. Just keep buying AYRO, right? It's a US EV play, and they have kind of these types of vehicles. Take a look at this. So they're kind of like these all-purpose kind of vehicles. So think about, on my college campus, right, back when I was at Penn State, like these cars, they weren't EVs, but they had these types of vehicles all over the place, right? They're always doing work on the grounds, and it's perfect for like resorts, for college campuses, things like that. And Biden wants to get, I forget the exact numbers, but he wants to get a crazy amount of EVs, U.S.-made EVs, in government vehicles, right? So that this is the type of play that makes a lot of sense for that, groundskeeping, things like that. So I like the play a lot. I think this one has, I personally like AYRO more than I like Solo on the surface business model and kind of the vehicles, in front of me. That's my take. So here it is. And it even tells you like education, corporate campuses, hotels, resorts, government. There it is. Biden comes out and wants to get a massive kind of government vehicles to go all EV. Boom. If AYRO is the company that's going to be able to do that, there you go. That's the play. And this should be a huge play in the coming months. Probably a longer term play. This wouldn't be a terrible idea to buy in a long-term portfolio, buy in an IRA, buy a chunk here. If it dips, buy a little more. Do your due diligence, and then if you feel confident in it, let it sit for a little bit. I think this is going to be a good play over the next year plus potentially. But I'll trade it though. I will trade it. Buy this stock now. I stop. Yeah, that's the reality. That's the thing that's crazy though, is that's like the stuff that gets views. If in the title of the video, right, you have stocks to buy now rather than stocks to watch, there's a significant difference in the views you get from stocks to watch to stocks to buy. That slight change changes everything. Although I'm never going to say, hey, buy the stock. Like, I will never say that. I'll say, hey, here's the plan here's why I'm buying these stocks. Here's my plan. I encourage you to build your own plan and find your own stocks, because I don't want people to be buying stocks, right, where if I'm buying a stock down here at like under $7 for AYRO, and the stock's spiking up over 10, you should not be buying. Your entry was horrible. So there are people who followed that, who bought the stock up here over $10, who are now sitting down $2 per share. And who knows how big they went in. So it's like, okay, maybe long-term they're going to hold this thing out and it's going to be fine. But also maybe they're going to panic sell at, $8 because they lost too much and they're going to move on, I think we can see $20 on AYRO. I think over 10, solidly holding over 10, will be very, 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 very doable in the coming months, if not sooner. So I think that's solid. All right, let's see. CTRM, I'm not a huge fan. It's got to hold to 110. CTRM holding 110. Yes. Ride's a good EV play. Yeah, I think Ride's a good EV play as well. Let's pull up Ride. Lordstown Motors. How has it been doing lately? Let's see what we got. Higher lows. Charts kind of choppy, but that said, still putting in higher lows. I still like the chart setup. It's got a lot of chop, but still pretty solid. At a relative low, looks like it's trying to bottom out here, down around 24-ish. So from 24 up to $30 seems like a fairly simple trade. It seems like a very, very doable trade, right? And it's a solid little percent gain if you want that, or even a longer term play. Would have to do more due diligence into this one personally, but it fits that same kind of mold, right, as a lot of the EVs and kind of, some of the Fisker stuff that I liked back in the day. How is appreciate your style? Awesome. I'm glad I have people who appreciate that stuff. How dead in size? See, the thing is, here's the thing. I'm nothing against anybody. I don't personally watch enough. That's why I didn't actually watch the video to know. Someone actually told me about that, and that's why AYRO spiked. But there's things. So when someone does that, there's like he's even said that he's called and spoke with someone at the SEC that explains like, hey, how do you get in trouble? How do you get in trouble for pumping stocks? Not that he's pumping stocks on purpose. He's just kind of laying out the thesis, the bull thesis, right, on a stock, which is fine, right? The information's out there, right? The information is out there. Now the question is, okay, do people just buy it randomly? And that's kind of what happens. And that's why the whole alert thing, that's why that stuff, I also stay away from that, because if you have alerts, if you have a paid Discord, Patreon, or you're saying, well, guys, I'll let you know what I buy before I tell my YouTube guy, like my whole YouTube channel. Well, then what's happening, right, is, okay, they're getting the initial reaction in their head. Okay, the second he says he's buying this, I need to buy this thing immediately, because then he's going to drop a video and everyone else is going to buy it. So you're only making, and the way I see it, you're only making the pump or the spike even worse, because people are not even going to even think. They're going to immediately see the ticker symbol and just buy it. They're not even going to do any research, any due diligence. That's why I like the weekend stuff. When I show you guys my portfolio, I like doing it on the weekend, saying, okay, here's the stuff that I'm in. Please do not buy these things. Here are potential ideas for entries. And also, if you're going to buy that come pre-market Monday, you're going to be paying a premium, whereas you can probably get a better dip during the day, number one. And it's just kind of my ideas. And there are no alerts. And I'm never going in all in on one play saying, oh, this is the play that's going to be 1,000%. Each of the plays that I'm in have that, high potential reward, but they have that risk, right? So that's kind of how I trade. I'm transparent in how I trade, but there's no alert type of thing. And when you do that, right, the way that I see it too is that I say that I personally have not noticed or cannot notice any reaction or any movement from anything that I have traded based on just saying, oh, I'm in a stock. But the second I see that that's not going to happen, I'll make sure that I have no interest by any means in getting caught up with the SEC for anything. So I'll be making sure that doesn't happen, right? And that we'll stop whatever we have to stop at that point or fix it. But I just don't like the alerts, because the alerts only entice people to be alerted to go and buy it right now. That's the issue that you see with alerts. But if he's not selling into his followers, then he's fine. So a lot of the positions that he has are longer term plays. So yeah, he does buy in before. People buy in before. But as long as you're actually not selling, right? Yeah, you're going to be up immediately on your position. But as long as you're not selling into your followers, then yeah, I guess it's technically legal to do. So we'll see. Personally, I don't think from my videos, he's not a pumper. He just has a lot of, he does a lot of due diligence, and he's solid. He really picks solid plays, from everything that I have seen. I have Clover too, so I'm losing money. I've been losing money on Clover as well. Let's see, ASMB. This is a super patience play. No, like, oh man, if it doesn't move tomorrow, I'm gonna slowly be adding this one as the account grows, right? Build out a nice fat position in this guy, and if we get a run towards $10, great. That's what I'm looking for ASMB. And they have like 200 plus million in cash, so I like that cash. And then any update here on a new product coming out, because they switched directions on what they were working on, right? So any update on the other stuff that they have in the pipeline in the background that wasn't as kind of prominent, boom, the stock's gonna spike. I almost guarantee that. So I like that one. Yeah, and the thing that the stocks that are going to 10x and those types of style of videos too, I just personally don't think that they're very helpful. I mean, for some people, they may love that type of stuff, but for me, I just don't think it's as helpful. I'd rather have people be able to do it themselves, because I don't ultimately, right? There's not going to be, this type of stuff. Who knows? What if there's some restrictions that we're going to have from like the SEC and on social media that you can't talk about like stocks, or you got to be very, very careful on what you say on a certain stock. So this stuff may not be around, who knows? I'm just saying, I doubt it, but who knows? This type of stuff may not be around. So I'd rather have people who know how to actually find the stocks to buy, find stocks that fit their criteria, and build out a plan and strategy. So the thing that I think is the most fun is that I follow a lot of guys on Twitter. I think the pumps are, to be honest, there's a few people on YouTube who can really pump stocks, but on Twitter is where the main pumps are. Because on Twitter you have people who have alerts on their tweets for tweets, but then you have these guys that have hundreds of thousands of followers that are like, I'm buying this stock for a day trade today, and if they're buying a low float stock, that stock spikes. So that's the stuff that I like to follow. But I follow those guys just because I'm not trying to buy a stock that I saw someone tweet about. That's the thing. And the game that I play a lot is, okay, how can I find some stocks before these guys find them? And so like ASMB could be an example of one that all of a sudden you see some guy on Twitter with a ton of followers, who tweets about it one day and the stock spikes, 20, 30% because it said, hey, bottomed out play. There's not too many bottomed out plays left out there. They got $200 million in cash. So, the game to me is like, find the play before the pumper finds a play, which is essentially the entire point of the whole premise behind the video that I made on how to beat the pump on my playlist on how to find stocks to trade. So it's fun. It's one of the most rewarding things when you're sitting back and you see the stock that you've been in, for so long or for however long, because you felt solid about it. You've done your due diligence. You found the play. It worked out. One of those was WWR for me. I'll pull it up. Was one that I liked quite a bit back in here. I was buying it back in here. I got stopped out, but I got back in. I was, okay, you know what? And then eventually I saw somebody tweeting about it. Nothing against those guys. They're going to do what they want to do, and all power to them. A lot of them are great traders. They didn't get there, by fluke. But they have a lot of pull in the stocks that they talk about. So all of a sudden the stock starts pushing up. It hits over $11. I cash in from my average down here under $6. I was like, let's go. That was a great example, right? It did potentially get some extra little pump, right? But I was in before that, and so that was the name of the game. That was the whole point. So Powell speaking Tuesday, so we got to watch that. Powell speaking Tuesday is going to be key. That's going to be important. Let's see. Sorry, I'm missing some of these. NEPT. I actually think it's getting. I missed some of it on Friday. I missed getting back in on Friday, but it was solid. I was in it back in here, and I wrote it up here. And the pre-market hour move was nuts to like almost $6. Yeah, $5.89. I mean, are you kidding me? I sold my last bit of shares at $5, and I didn't have that much. I had about a fourth of a position size in here. Unfortunately, I didn't have as much as I wanted to, but it came back down, held support here down around 165, and is off to the races for now. I think this is probably going to be if we see a green market, if we see cannabis tickers pushing up, NEPT is one to watch, and I think it's going to be a pretty solid play going forward for sure. Let's see. And yeah, that's the thing about and everyone's different on how they trade. I love technical analysis. I think it's so helpful, and it's the first screener that I use for any stock I trade. So if someone puts up a stock, for example, MVIS, I'll pull it up right now. If I pull up MVIS, okay, this is not a stock I like, technically speaking, because it's up so much. You can probably find something else that has this potential somewhere else. But that said, doesn't mean I'm hating on MVIS. Doesn't mean I don't think this can keep going. I think it can certainly keep going. But that said, right, for me, is this a high percentage trade? No, this is not a high percentage trade. So that's why I'm not going to take this trade. But if we draw in some lines here, we can probably pull up, see what we can find. This is going to be your area right here, this kind of buy range where we have a gap. So if this gap ever gets filled to the downside, or we had a gap on the chart, this is going to be an area under like $17. Seems like it could be a decent buy area. We'll see if we ever see that point again. But MVIS, look back. I mean, I'm not going to be touching a stock that's like this unless I have confidence. Like, for example, NEO. NEO is a perfect example, right, of a stock that was up so much. But, right, I'm buying this one fundamentally in the long term for the long term. So, yeah, I was watching NEO for so long, and I was like, yeah, should I buy it up in here in the 20s? It kept pushing. And eventually I said, you know what, I got to just buy some shares and hold this thing. And that's what I did. I think at some point in here, in the 20s is when I started to buy it, and I've been buying since. But it was like, but it's the long-term play. So I'm not looking to freak out if NEO dips. I'm actually looking to buy more dips, and I'm not worried about technicals on a stock like NEO because I fundamentally have that belief, and I've done the research myself to say, hey, I believe this one fundamentally long-term. That's a whole other style of trading than technicals. Technicals outweigh fundamentals in the short term, but fundamentals will outweigh in the long term. So that's one of those things. Always kind of know. Let's see. Scrolling down through. Not saying check out SOS, but just saying that feeling. Yeah. SOS was a good one too. I personally missed it, but there's been some more talk about it, obviously, as of late. But SOS, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, you had SOS under $5. That's more than a double from where it's at. That's a beautiful play. And the writing was on the wall here. Crypto-related play. It wasn't unfound. It was unfound until it started to get pumped and it started to get talked about more. So That was Gmbl. Also, Gmbl has been, let's pull this one up. How is this one doing? Look at that. Beautiful. Beautiful play here. This thing was down under $4 recently, and it's popped up to over 20. Now it's up in the, it's kind of like a little consolidation flag. So I would like to see this kind of consolidation break to the upside back over $20. Would be nice. We'll see. Let's see. Sorry if I'm missing things. I'm going to go back through. All about the low risk, high reward. That's exactly it. There's no need to play. The thing is, there's hundreds of thousands of opportunities out there every single day. There's no need to feel like you have to be in every single play that everybody else is in, because exactly the problem is that everybody else is in it. When it's so obvious and when everybody's in a trade, that's when the trade is not going to work out, right? At least that's what I found. So that was one of those examples with Fisker. To be honest, I liked it, but also a lot of other people liked it as well. The stock went from like $18 pre-merger down to like $8 post-merger, and then eventually it went to 20 plus, and then now it's come back down, but it's pushing back up again. Some recent price targets over like 23 and 27. So Fisker is kind of an interesting play, I think, going forward. Something that I'm not intending to sell anytime soon, but we'll see. But again, that was one where it was like everybody was in the play. It was too obvious. The next Tesla, right? But when it became too obvious, you saw manipulation. You saw a lot of weak hands getting shaken out, the diamond hands, all that stuff, whatever you want to say. But it was kind of funny to see. CBAT, okay, pushing up higher lows. I like it. I missed the entries down here under 8, so I want to get on. If I see under 8 on CBAT, I'll probably take a stab at it this week. If not, I miss it for now. Yeah, there's a move here over $10. We get a move, I think, over 11. We'll probably hit all-time highs again on CBAT. Uptick in volume on NEPT. Yeah, well, because they also had an offering. Let's see, right? Did NEPT do an offering? Well, there was a lot of volume, so yes, but they did an offering. So let's pull up. If I pull up Seeking Alpha, I believe they did, right? If I'm not mistaken. Yeah, they did an offering right here on the 17th, and then they closed the offering. So that's why. Usually a lot of times when you see a post-offering play, you see a lot more volume come in. But that said, NEPT was one that was gaining volume prior to this, and it had recently had news. And also, it's kind of an unfound cannabis play that not many people know much about. And so, I mean, looking back, the dip down under... this is a perfect example of when they're ugly, buy them when they're ugly, and it was like I was kind of getting a little too greedy on that and waiting a little bit more. I wanted to see if it came down closer to 150, and then that's where I probably would take a stab. But I missed it. I was a little bit, I wasn't, I was too patient in a sense, and then now the stock's back up nearly 2, and I think it's probably going to gap up potentially over 2. We'll see. Maybe it doesn't, but we'll see. Trit, T-R-I-T, is a blockchain play. No crazy move. This is a weird looking chart though. So what do we got? I don't know. This could be one of those types of plays that if this is a blockchain play, then this is not found yet because it hasn't popped. So this is one of those that people will come finding for. I think another one of those types of plays too is DSS, another blockchain related play. I think they have a crypto trading platform, I believe. This is one of those bottomed out, recently did an offering, and now it's sitting here. I want to see $5+ on this guy, but these are types of plays where it's like TRIT, DSS. Sometimes with these unfound Bitcoin plays, it takes them to simply just drop a press release to be found. If people aren't going to find them and Bitcoin starts kind of cooling off or consolidating for quite some time, and you see a lot of the bigger names, the MARAs, the Riots, the SOS, a lot of those kind of pulling back, then you're probably going to see these are not going to catch fire unless they get a news spike. So you need them to come out with news saying crypto, saying Bitcoin in the headline, and then boom, you're going to get a lot of people talking about it. Meanwhile, as I mentioned FSR, though, quickly to point this one out, so this is actually a really interesting chart. You had a month to grab this thing in under $15, and it finally got some price target upgrades. So I actually had covered calls that I had sold at like $19 on my shares, and luckily for last Friday, we kind of pushed up over 20, and I was like, oh man, I'm gonna have to buy these back or roll them. And luckily, I didn't do anything, and the stock kind of came back down. We kind of had some choppiness in the overall market, and FSR pulled back. So it's kind of one of those examples of, okay, you get some recent price target upgrades, cool, but let's get some more news from the company itself to kind of back these targets up. Once we get that, I think Fisker will be off to the races. So I'm going to be a little bit more careful when I'm selling covered calls on Fisker. I'm not going to be going too close to the money or too close to the price when I'm selling my covered calls, at least as of right now. All right, let's see. NVIV, here's what I have on NVIV. 150 could come down to this trend line. We got to get over $2. Over $2 and holding over 2 on NVIV is more clear sailing. I actually have lots as well, car lots, because of, well, it actually bounced pretty well, because of simply Carvana is kind of why, is the correlation to Carvana. Where is Carvana? Can we see, or cars, there's cars.com, which is at $13 uptrending. What is Carvana? CVNA, is that what it? Yeah, CVNA. Look at this thing, over $300. That's kind of why I like lots. You know, similar, I guess, similar sector, I guess, kind of a similar idea. Carvana is a different kind of style, though. I guess it's different. More, I can see the value in Carvana, so I guess IEC. At the 50 SMA, not a terrible spot. If it can't hold this area, I would watch for further downside, though, because it's kind of showing us right now. We're kind of in a point where it's like, okay, maybe it tries to develop support here where it's at right now, or we see further downside until we get a downtrend break. So you got to reverse out of this downtrend, which we have not done so yet, to kind of give me the, okay, reversal is now imminent and we have a move back to the upside. So we'll see. Score, let's pull up Score. Heavy option calls. Okay. This is an interesting one too. It's been putting in those kind of, had these little spikes, consolidation, pullbacks. So I don't know enough about the company personally, though, to say, oh yeah, I love it. But let's see what we kind of have. We're in that kind of phase of a pullback right now. So let's see if we can do, can we get a trend line action? Yeah, maybe not perfect, but something like that. Not the best trend line. Yeah, we'll see if it can hold here. I would think the trend line is less important than this. I would like to see it holding up right here at like 365. These prior highs will be now new support. So let's see if it holds that. That's probably a good idea for Score. Under $4, down towards maybe 350 is the lowest I would play on a speculative trade, unless I have the conviction longer term. So, you know, that's at least how I'd play this one, looking for a bigger move to the upside. I believe I have a covered call video. I believe there should be some covered call videos selling options. There should be some in the option playlist as well. The software that I have is Gmbl. There should be a link in the pinned comment of this or just in the description box. Strong industry of the week. I don't know. That's going to be interesting to see. I mean, I think Bitcoin is up there. Obviously, if Bitcoin continues to push up, that'll be huge. If not, then we'll have to see. Maybe we'll see some. You might see cannabis rotation back into cannabis. I'm waiting on EV rotation. We're kind of close, but I'm waiting to see a move back to EV. So we're kind of a lot of the same bigger name or bigger kind of sectors, but we haven't had like a full on, okay, this is EV central right now. Like it's EV or nothing, you know, for a while. So EVs have been hot in the background, but they haven't been as hot as they were, right? So we'll see. We're kind of in a weird limbo period. I like AYRO as it comes down. The more it comes down, the more I like it. Solo could be a decent play. So we'll see. Those are some decent plays as well. Let's see. EOLS. What is this guy looking like? This just spikes. This is one that I don't like. I don't like them on the day they spike. I let them come back down, and either they're going to hold support here up around 9 something, or they're going to come down further. So I would let it come back down and give it some time to chill. Maybe it pushes back up. I don't know, but I would like to give it some time because you're playing with a lot more downside right now, personally, than the upside. Zom, I want to see. Zom's got to hold $2, $2 support, $3 up towards $3 is resistance. until it kind of breaks out of that range, the trade for me is like, okay, $2, buy this thing as close to 2 as I can and sell it as close to 3 as I can. That's the trade, the way that I see it. Best recovery stock. I don't know if we're kind of past a lot of I feel like we're kind of past a lot of the recovery stuff. Not past. We have a lot of recovery to go, but a lot of those ideas have already kind of been. They were better, honestly, back in December. If we really, and I was still saying, maybe we'll wait till we get vaccines out. It's tough because of how the market's been. So I'm not a huge fan of playing recovery stocks as recovery stock right now. If you want to buy and hold something for the longer term, that's one thing. Now, FRX, there's certainly opportunities out there, but FRX I like. I'm going to be buying this one in the long term, probably the IRA as well in the long-term portfolio. The dips are my friend. So if we get some dips, I'll be taking some dips. TYME time. What do we got here on this guy? This is not bad. I don't like this. This is not a terrible idea. I kind of like where it's sitting. Prior area of a spike up towards 250. It's has a higher low 225. So I would play this thing if it can hold this 250-ish area or down towards 225. Great. If not, could it come down towards like $2? Yes. So I would play this thing down towards $2. So entering this guy in chunks from here, maybe 250. I take a position like Monday morning. If it dips to 225, I'll add some. If it dips to $2, I'll add some, and then I'll cut it below 2. Something like that could be a decent idea. SEAC, I have not mentioned this one. SEAC. Low flow, not crazy volume. We're going to see it drop below 130. Yeah, this is looking like it's putting in those kind of higher lows roughly, right? So we kind of have that same, we have a low here towards 1. And we have a 110, 120, 130-ish. Would like to see it hold this area. It's going to get interesting now that it's above this 200 SMA. Now this orange line, is that a super huge indicator? No. So it is what it is. But I also had people who were asking questions about, and I'll talk about this before we wrap things up, because people were asking about EMAs, differences between EMAs, SMAs, things like that. They're all up to what works best for you. Moving averages, MACD, RSI, all those different indicators. I'm not a huge fan of I need this indicator. Like if I didn't have the 50 SMA, okay, cool. I would just look at support and resistance. Like it's not a big deal. They're helpful tools, and many times they can give you good indications of momentum. So for example, right, if this blue line on the daily chart crosses this orange line, the 50 SMA crossing the 200, that's generally a bullish sign. So what does that mean? That means a shorter term moving average is crossing over a longer term moving average, which is indicating positive momentum right now, right? Shorter term, positive momentum. Now, many times that's skewed because if you have a stock that just spikes, yeah, no wonder the 50 SMA is going to cross 200 SMA because the stock just spiked, 1,000% or 500% or whatever it was. Yeah, no wonder. So it's not perfect. It really comes down to you. I know people who love using EMAs. I mean, for day trading, people love using EMAs. I used to use when I was more into like day trading, and I was learning like how this stuff works. And I wasn't very good at it, but I was using EMAs. And so I was using like the 10 EMA, the 25 EMA, the 50 EMA, the 200 EMA, all on the 1 day, 1 minute chart, and sometimes the 1 day, 5 minute chart. That's what kind of worked as support lines for me, is to kind of guide the momentum of a stock. That it depends on what works best for you. I don't think that having more indicators is going to make you a better trader by any means. The less indicators, the better. I just like using the 200 and the 50 on the daily chart just as solid areas of support, resistance that could give you a guide or help in kind of guide the momentum or guide your ideas behind a ticker or behind a certain trade. That's just my take on that stuff. So that's that. VWAP on the 1 minute VWAP. That's great. I like VWAP on the shorter term time scales, intraday trading. VWAP is great, to help you kind of identify what stocks are, continuing their uptrends or continuing putting in higher lows, or what stocks breaking back up to the upside towards the end of the day as it had news in the morning. VWAP is great. So with that said, I'm going to wrap things up. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Make sure you hit the thumbs up button on the way out. Futures are green, so we're still looking pretty good. Not very green though, so this could change come tomorrow morning. We will see. This will stay up here. It's about an hour and 20 minutes long, so it will stay up here on the channel. You can go back and watch any point you would like to. We talked about if you missed the beginning, you can go back and check that out. We'll see. This should be a fun week. I think it should be a good week. We'll see if we get a bounce back week and pushing back towards all-time highs. If I had to take a guess, I would say yes. But at the end of the day, if we see some further dips, I would recommend having some cash available, making sure you always have some cash available to be able to buy the dips, and never, go out. But if you're someone who's a swing trader like me, I would never recommend you to go out. You should close the day, right? Going into the night, going into the close of the after hours with no cash available to trade. Have some cash on hand in case we get a further dip, because you'll be able to manage yourself out of those positions in the future days. It's so much more comforting having that ability, unless you're more experienced, obviously. Then it's a different story. But thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate you guys for all tuning in. The platform that I use for all this and all the chart analysis is always Webull. Link in the description box down below or the pinned comment if you want to check it out. Get some free stocks when you sign up. Other than that, make sure you hit the thumbs up button, and I will see you guys in tomorrow's video. Stay green.